So I wanted to show you some advanced techniques you can use to wax dark furniture and still get a consistent sheen across the top. You can also use this on light color furniture. If, for example, you're doing a dresser like this and the top isn't looking even, you can definitely use the same technique for that. But specifically, I wanted to show you how to wax probably the most difficult color, which is black. So this is one that's already been waxed. I don't know how well you can see it, but I will put pictures on my site of the sheen. But if you can see it, it's consistent across the entire piece, which is what you want. There's no splotchiness. It looks really beautiful. It's probably somewhere between a semi-gloss or a satin sheen, probably closer to a semi-gloss. I do want to point out that if you're going for a high gloss sheen with wax, you're most likely not going to achieve that. And the reason I say that is that there are additional tools and techniques that you need to achieve a high gloss finish with any finishing substance, and wax is not an exception to that. So the highest kind of sheen you're probably going to get with this is a semi-gloss. So don't expect a high gloss sheen when you're doing this. So yeah, this is what it will look like in the end. And the tools what we're gonna use today to create this look is we're gonna use Fitties & Sons Supreme Wax. We sell this on our website, bluemineralschocpaint.com. I'm using light. I like to use light on dark colors because it brings out a little bit of more richness in the color versus just the clear. But if you are doing a light color, we do sell clear as well. It's about $19 for a can like this. I put it in a glass container and microwave it for about 30 seconds just to get it a little softened up. You don't have to do this. It's just something I do to make it a little bit easier, especially because I do this all year round and it's Utah and it gets freezing cold here. So if you are in a cold state while you're doing this, definitely microwave it. It will make your life a little bit easier. And put it in a glass container. Put it in a glass container. Do not microwave it in this metal container. Also, putting it in a separate container will prevent it, or will make it so that you don't get contamination from the pieces you're working on with other pieces, because most likely this can will last you through a few projects. And your brush or cloth, whatever you're using, is going to pick up some of the color of the piece you're working on, and then you're going to put it right back into your wax. So you don't want to be working on a white piece and then have black paint end up all over it. Then we're going to use a waxing brush. This is the waxing brush we sell on our website. It's the 1.5 inch. I also have a 2 inch here to show you the difference in size. For this project, because we're working on small sections, the 1.5 inch is more ideal, but the 2 inch is very nice if you're working on a large dresser or something like this. Then you're going to need just a clean rag. I just buy a bag of rags cotton rags from Home Depot. You can also use a clean t-shirt. Any kind of soft cotton will work that's clean. Then we're going to use a buffing pad. I love these. These are actually the ones that are made to put on like an electric buffer. I don't have an electric buffer and I don't really see the need for one. I just buy the little pads. They're like $5. This one is the synthetic wool. I also have a microfiber one that I use. I use them interchangeably. I don't really notice a difference between the two different pads, but you can just pick them up in the polishing section at Home Depot, or I'm sure they even sell them at Walmart. And last but not least is still wool. This is quadruple zero still wool. It's the finest still wool you can buy at Home Depot or Walmart. This will save your time. This will make it so much easier. Definitely get this. If there's anything here that I would say you would want, it's the still wool. This is going to be the key to creating a consistent sheen. And you can pick them up pretty cheap at just Walmart or Home Depot. But you want the finest that you can find. So that's it. So I'm going to bring in the chair that we're going to be working on, and we'll get started. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start waxing this chair. So you're going to dip your brush into the wax. I just it. I get maybe a teeny tiny bit on the bottom. I'd say it's equivalent to maybe 1/4 teaspoon of wax. And then I just take it and I brush it on just like you would if you were painting. You do want to make sure that you're working it into any crack, because anywhere that you miss will show up very clearly when you buff it. So you just want to make sure you're getting it on the entire piece. Then you're going to take your clean rag or cloth or t-shirt and you're just going to wipe off the excess. And I think there's a little bit of a confusion on what that means when you wipe off the excess. I'm not trying to remove everything. I'm not rubbing to the point where it's getting shiny. I am just taking off any clumps that I see and making it so it's smooth. So I can run my hand on it right now and it's not tacky, it's just smooth, and it's not ridged, if that makes sense. It's just flat and smooth. And that's really all there is to applying wax. The things that I think people get confused on is, or where they start to have problems, is that you're not, I already said this, you're not trying to remove all the wax, because you definitely want a layer of wax on there. And you want a good even layer of wax. But the bigger thing is that it's not going to look pretty. You don't want to get to the point where you're buffing it yet. So I think a lot of people sit here and they rub it back and forth until they think it looks good, and then you end up with a splotchy mess. Also, you're going to have, unless you have the magical rag from the future, you're probably going to get little tiny dust particles in it from your rag, little pieces. Don't worry about those, just let them be. You don't need to rub them out, you don't need to rub until they don't stick. It is perfectly fine. Just know that when you're waxing, especially a dark piece of furniture like this, if you're waxing the right way, it's just not going to look very good at this stage. So don't expect it to. It's going to look splotchy, it's going to look uneven. It's just going to look like crap. I don't know how else to say it. And I don't want you to be concerned, because we are going to make it look beautiful, because we're going to do what's called rubbing out a finish. And some of you might be familiar with rubbing out a finish when it comes to polyurethane. That's how you get a consistent sheen with that, and it's the same with wax. You just want, your only goal with this is to make sure that every inch of this chair is covered with a thin layer of wax. You can also apply the wax with a rag, by the way. You don't have to have the brush. The brush just speeds it up a little bit, makes it easier to get into cracks. You can also, if you're having a hard time telling where you've been, I tend to use my hand, because it will make the texture of the chair a lot smoother. Where you've been, so. Okay, now I'm going to continue waxing the rest of this chair. But with Fitty's wax, I would say you need to wait at least 4 or 5 hours before you're going to try to buff it. I tend to just wait overnight. What I'll do is I'll just take an entire piece, I'll 4 of these chairs, and I will wax them all. They'll all look like crap, and I will let them sit overnight. Not longer than that. Don't let them sit a few days, because if you let it sit for too long, any kind of unevenness that we're going to even out with buffing will be a lot harder to take out, because you want the wax to start to cure, but you don't want it to cure all the way. Fitty's dries faster than most other waxes, and I really don't know the time frame on other brands like Annie Sloan and CC Caldwell. I specifically use Fitty's, and this has been my experience with Fitty's, but I've heard similar things with the other brands that you probably want to wait 24 hours before you start to buff. Also, protection finish. When you put on another coat, like if I were to go over one of the coats I just did, you're really just rubbing the old wax in with the new wax. You're not really building up a new finish. It doesn't really work that way with wax. So when people tell you to put 2 or 3 coats on, it's really not doing you any good. The only benefit you're going to get from putting another coat on your piece is that it evens out the wax. So sometimes it will help with if you're having an uneven finish. But in most cases, it's not necessary. Another thing I want to talk about, because I think where this comes up the most, is with tabletops. Like specifically dining tabletops, because they get a lot more wear. You can put multiple layers of wax on a dining room tabletop, and it might give you a little bit extra protection, just because it fills in any of the spots you might have missed with your first coat of wax. But wax is not a good idea for tabletops, and especially dining room tabletops. Anywhere that's going to have a hot plate set on it, don't use wax. I know there's a lot of people who say it holds up just fine. My experience with it is that wax melts. So 2 places you never want to use wax are any piece of furniture that's ever going to go outside, and any tabletop that's going to have hot plates put on it, which most likely is going to be a dining room tabletop. And the reason for that is that it will melt, and you'll have a huge mess on your hands. It will ruin the finish. You'll spend all this time, polishing it, making it look beautiful, and then you'll put a hot plate on it, and it will leave a nasty ring on the table. So my advice, if you're doing a tabletop, wax the legs if you want to use wax the chairs, but on the actual tabletop, use something more durable. The most durable protection you can get at the local hardware store is polyurethane. You can use a wipe-on poly, or you can use the brush-on polyurethane, or you can even buy it in a spray can. Invest the money and take the time to make that look beautiful, even though polyurethane is more difficult to apply and to get an even sheen with. I would definitely recommend spending the extra time if you're doing a dining room tabletop, because the wax won't last very long. It's easily eaten away with by acids and things like that. It's just not a really strong protective barrier. It works really well with paint, because paint is already a very protective barrier on wood, so you won't get the rippling or anything like that. But the wax itself, I only use it on painted furniture, and I only use it on things that are not going to be getting a lot of hot items on them, or a lot of things slid across the top, specifically dining room tables. So I just wanted to tell you that and make sure you understand when wax should be used and when it should not be used. It is the only thing I use for painted furniture, because I like the shine it gives you. It's a lot easier to apply. I really love it, but I just want to make sure you understand where you don't want to use it, because you won't be happy with it, and that's the last thing I want. So I'm going to continue waxing.